Welcome to our Tuesday edition of Deep Treks. I'm glad that you can join us for today's Bible study as we look into Revelations chapter 7. We have been looking at a lot of things, and today we are looking at the 144,000. And so let's just look in this together. We looked at the first three verses yesterday. We talked about God preserving and God sending his angels to preserve, and basically telling us that he's the one that holds back the chaos of the world and the problems that are coming, even to the end of time. And ultimately, God is the one who is pulling out and sealing the saints. And it tells us in verse 3, "Do not harm the land of the sea until we put a seal upon the foreheads of the servants of our God. Then I heard the number of those who were sealed from all of the tribes of Israel." And the next couple of verses gives us basically 12,000 times the 12 tribes, and it lists them by name, 12,000 from this tribe, 12,000 from that tribe, kind of thing. And then verse 9 says, "After this, and I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that no one could count, from every nation, tribe, and people, and language, standing before the throne in front of the Lamb. And they were wearing white robes, and they were holding palm branches in their hands. And they cried out in a loud voice." And we're going to talk more about the crying out and what happened there tomorrow. But today I want us to focus on this 144,000. A lot of people have differing views on who is this. Is this the saints as far as all believers? Is this really, it says clearly it's the people of Judah. And it could be. One of the sides we can look at this is that it is really that there's going to be 144,000 that come out. They're going to be witnesses, it tells us later on. I believe it's after chapter 10 or 11. It's going to talk about that. But also, we can't separate it from verse 9, where it says that there's a great multitude from all these tribes and nations. So the two have to come together. And one of the problems that comes into this whole discussion is what people will want to know is, where are the lost tribes? I mean, the 10 tribes of the north disappeared. And that happened during the exile under Assyria, because the nation of Israel, if you remember the history, was established because Moses took them out of Egypt. They got to the promised land. They were given 12 sections of land to live upon. And then Judah became the main tribe under David, and then he united all the tribes. They stayed united under his son. But then after Solomon's death, the northern 10 kingdoms separate from the southern 2 kingdoms. Judah and Benjamin stay together, and they unite together basically as one kingdom. The northern kingdoms are kind of united, but not really. They're not as strongly united. And they even try to prevent people from going down and worshiping in Jerusalem, where the temple was. They built their own altars, and they also built an altar calf, which was against God's ruling. And they had a whole bunch of other problems. There would be good and bad kings in the north, just like the south. But in time, God basically let them be taken over by Assyria because of the sins of the people and the sins of their leaders. So after they go to Assyria, they are put into Assyria and exile. There is a handful of people that stayed in the mountain areas, trying to hold faith, but they intermarried with the Philistines that were there, mixed with their gods, and so their faith was kind of a mixture of true faith in God and some of the false worship that was going on. And they became what would be, by Jesus' time, the Samaritans, who tried to follow the Bible, but kind of mixed it up at times. And so a lot of Jews didn't respect them. And that's the whole situation when we see the Samaritan woman and other people and the story of the Good Samaritan. But I don't have time to get into all that today. I'm just stating that there were some that stayed. And there were probably a few faithful people who went down to Judah to live. Later on, Babylon would come in and they would take over Judah. And they would have an exile as well, because they're not doing the things God wanted either. And then when they get exiled, the faithful people that are in exile start to meet together in homes, which becomes the synagogues. When they return, there's synagogues in every town instead of just having to go to Jerusalem. They do rebuild the temple. They do rebuild Jerusalem under Cyrus's permission. But they're also taking their faith to their own hometowns. That's something that's great because that's the beginning of what will lead to the church and meeting in homes and other things in the future, and building up to what the church is today. So when we come to all of this, there's a lot of things we have to consider. We don't know what truly happened to all of the 10 tribes. Some of them might have been absorbed into Judah. Some of them were there. We do know that the tribe of Judah becomes the Jews, and Jesus is a Jew. But Jesus is also of the tribe of Judah because his family lineage comes through David, which was of Judah. So these are all facts that are there. I know this is kind of a confusing lesson because it's going through all these timelines and things. But in the end, we have to ask ourselves, if all the 12 tribes are supposed to come back and there's not even 12 tribes, what are we going to do? What is God going to do? Well, he's God. He can save them from wherever, and he can bring people from all those tribes. That's one answer to the question, and that would be some of the scholars' answers. The other side of this is, some will say, if you look at 12 tribes times 12,000, it's just another numbers thing showing us completion of the work of God for his people. And if we're looking at it from that standpoint, and then we put verse 9 in, that it says a multitude of people from all these different nations and tribes and peoples and languages that are standing before the throne, then these are all of those who are saved. And we know it's later on, when we look it up, it'll be out of tribulations. Now the problem also is going to come down in verse 14, and we're going to talk a lot more about this whole section tomorrow. But it really comes in verse 14 because some people look at that and interpret it where it says, these are they that come out of great tribulation and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Some interpret that and say, these are those that came out of the great tribulation. And when they say the great tribulation, they mean the final tribulation. But that isn't necessarily what that is. When you look at it in the Greek language, it just means great tribulation, which means it's all those who have died for their faith, all those who have ever stood up for Christ, all the witnesses of Christ throughout history who have been taken down because of what they believed in Christ. And so, what can we learn today that really does apply to us? How this all breaks down is really going to be left up to God. He may do it because he may say, I'm going to save some of the Jewish people. He may be reminding us that the saints of God are part of his family of God, and he only has one family. There is neither Jew nor Greek, but we are all children of God. And so therefore, as children of God, he's going to preserve those who die for their faith. That may be part of this. So what do we learn for us? We learn that even if you go through tribulation, it doesn't matter. God is preserving his people for a future, and he has a plan, even when the world around us doesn't know the plan or doesn't understand it. We can trust God. And so today I hope that you can hold on to that fact, and I hope that you will hold on to him and be blessed in your journey and take the blessings that God gives you through the tribulations that you might face and share them with others when they're going through their own struggles.
That's today's Devo on Deep Treks. No matter how deep the questions or dark the doubts, there's always a path forward. Reach out at deeptreks.com with prayer needs or topics you'd like us to explore. Keep trekking. Renewal is never far away. Be blessed on the journey and bless others along the way.